documents under attorney-client privilege. That press conference started seconds ago. Let's go ahead and listen
So,
live.
Danny, I wonder if it's possible to remove folks that are unmuted and are talking. I know it's hard in this format. I just think it's important that we be able to get this message through to people. And I just don't think it's going to work if people are talking throughout it.
Certainly. Allow us a moment.
Should be there live right now. And go full screen on that. Got it. No, because it's live.
Who is currently in a newsroom talking about going full screen? Whoever that is, you are.
He's just staring at us.
Who is staring at who? Whoever that person is, if you can hear that in your background, mute yourself, please. Okay. Let's try this one more time. And if we keep getting interrupted, we will remove them from the meeting. So.
Okay. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. I just think it's distracting for folks to have that chatter at the same time. And I know a lot of people want to hear about this. I'm going to begin again, just in case anybody missed anything. Today, my department is issuing a report summarizing our findings in our investigation into Michigan State University and their handling of the sexual assaults of hundreds of young women at the hands of Larry Nassar. Investigating how this abuse was able to be perpetuated for so long, who knew, what they knew, and when they knew it, has been a top priority for this department through 2 consecutive administrations now. The department issued its first charges in 2016 against the abuser, and in 2018 opened a formal investigation into the conduct of MSU at the request of and with a pledge of full support from the Board of Trustees. When I took office in 2019, I pledged that we would continue the investigation, be transparent about our findings, and be aggressive in this endeavor. At that point, the MSU board had released over 100,000 documents, but withheld approximately 6,000 of them under the claim of attorney-client privilege. I renewed my predecessor's request for the entirety of their documents again in January 2019, and multiple times, both formally and through the press, before being forced to close the investigation in 2021 due to the lack of cooperation from the MSU Board of Trustees. In 2023, upon the election of many new members to the board, and with information that this new board would vote in favor of releasing the documents, I renewed that request. Several days later, the board once again declined to share the withheld documents. But later that year, in December, the board finally voted to release the documents, and in March of this year, we began to receive the first batch of them. We do believe that we are now in possession of all the existing documents MSU has on this matter. Unfortunately, from the remaining documents, we have learned that not all of the communications were preserved, and that the university wrongly applied attorney-client privilege to many, if not most, of the remaining documents. Sorry, guys, I'm going to pause again because of the talking. Thank you. MSU has repeatedly justified withholding the documents because they contained information that was allegedly protected by the attorney-client privilege. Our review has revealed that this justification was not always appropriate. A significant number, if not a majority, of the documents did not appear to us to be covered by that privilege at all. Accordingly, there was no justification, no justifiable reason to withhold those documents for any period of time, let alone an extended period. Further, the documents that contained, or at least arguably contained, privileged information did not offer any new insight into MSU's handling of the abuse or who knew what about it and when. Indeed, most of the privileged information was not even related to those issues, but instead really to tangential issues such as public relations, insurance, and funding. Because our review revealed no new relevant information, we are closing this investigation. And while this closure is in keeping with the parameters of our investigatory duties, we recognize that it does not provide the type of closure sought by the survivors of Nassar's abuse.
Over the top of this graphic. I don't know if we should just post this and just leave it alone.
Just asking that the news outlets that are on right now, I understand that this is a different format than we usually use for technological reasons, but I think it's discourteous to people who are trying to pay attention to this. So I ask, please, that if you are a news outlet and you're on, that you mute this. And to my staff, I ask that maybe you remove those folks if they are going to continue to talk.
Unfortunately, AG, it's showing everyone is muted, so I can't see who the discourteous outlet currently is. But again, if you are recording this for yourself and for others, and you are allowing your background noise to be heard, you are ruining the recording for everyone.
All right, I'll continue. Sadly, there simply is no fulfilling the answer to the question of how Nassar was able to perpetuate his abuse on so many for so long without MSU or anyone else putting a stop to it. To say that I'm disappointed in this outcome is really an understatement. While we begin each investigation in pursuit of the truth and facts first and foremost, and take criminal or civil charges as a secondary consideration, it is my belief that by withholding the remaining 6,000 documents, MSU unnecessarily prolonged that hope that the questions survivors had would be answered and denied them closure that they were entitled to many years ago. I'd now like to address the many, many survivors of this abuse. I commend you all for your bravery in coming forward and sharing your stories, and for never giving up in the pursuit of justice and transparency. And while the investigation is closed, this is not where this story ends. Never in our collective many years as prosecutors have we seen a group of survivors come together and create the sisterhood as you have, and impacted systemic changes, not just here in Michigan, but nationwide, to ensure that schools are better prepared to prevent, investigate, and stop abuse, and to ensure that survivors are believed, are treated better in the judicial system, and to change the culture in how sexual assault is seen by the public at large. Here in Michigan, many laws have changed in response to your tenacious advocacy. Athletic trainers and physical therapists are now mandatory reporters. There is increased education in schools surrounding the prevention of sexual violence. Michigan has codified consequences for medical professionals who use their positions of authority to abuse others or prevent schools from reporting abuse. Criminal sexual conduct in the second and third degree are now, their statute of limitations have changed considerably from where they were before. And they're up now to from 10 years to 15 years. And the statute of limitations was revised for the civil suits that were related to this abuse. So culturally, you have certainly had a profound impact. And because of your work, we now recognize those who have been subjected to abuse as survivors are known as survivors, not as victims. You've changed how survivors are treated when they come forward, and you've changed our culture to one that leads with believing survivors. And you've allowed prosecutors across the nation to reform court testimony and allow non-charged victims to testify during sentencing proceedings.
For me, church, we would just like hang out in the kids' room.
I'm sorry, guys. I'm really trying to get through this. I wonder if there's a way just to sort of remove everybody so I can complete this. And then maybe people can email in or something. I'd really like to get this messaging across. It's just so distracting with everybody talking on here.
Being on TV.
It looks like it's NBC Universal. Maggie Vespa, I am removing you.
No, I was
From the
just
meeting.
unmuting to ask if it's possibly on your end, because everyone else has been muted this whole time. That was an intentional unmute, just to offer
Okay.
that possibility.
No, it is not. AG was the only one unmuted. And it is clearly, very clearly the sound of a newsroom. I'm going to mute everyone again, see if it goes away.
It was weird. Well, on that note, let's talk.
Go get lunch. Bye.
Who is
All right,
that
I'm-
person?
I'm going to go ahead and complete this. I'm sorry this has been such a distraction because obviously this is pretty important material that we're discussing. But I want to say, in addition, nationally, the United States Association of Gymnastics has created Safe Sport to protect athletes from all forms of harassment and abuse, and campuses are reviewing their policies and procedures to better prevent, identify, and prosecute abuse, as well as bolster campus safety and crime data reporting. So it was your tireless work and advocacy that accomplished this, and your strength has left this world a better place for preventing sexual assaults and protecting future survivors. And while this might not be the justice that you sought, I do believe the changes in how we now treat sexual abuse on campuses and in courtrooms alike is a form of justice that will have a profound impact for generations to come. So with that, happy to answer questions. And for the questions that I'm not able to answer, I would throw those to Danielle Hagman-Clark, who's the head of our criminal bureau and who worked tirelessly along with her team on this case and is infinitely familiar with everything that happened here. So.
Great, thank you. Ed White from AP News. Will you unmute yourself, and then please, we ask that you mute yourself again when you're completed. Yep, Ed, did you hear me? You should be able to unmute yourself, Ed. Nope. You want to type it in the chat?
Wait, there we go.
There we go.
Okay.
Attorney General, good morning. I want to ask you, what were your expectations when you got these documents? Wasn't this a possible outcome? You seem to suggest this morning that you and your department were expecting some smoking guns here. What were your expectations, and why is this surprising? Wasn't it possible that these documents would show nothing? What did you expect?
Well, I mean, anything is possible, right? But the way that MSU and the Board of Trustees, over the course of course, many incarnations of the Board of Trustees, the way they were so tenacious in withholding these particular documents, of course, it would lead a normal person to think, well, what is in those documents that they don't want us to see? So, of course, it would lead us to believe that perhaps there was incriminating information that we would find. So, yeah, it was surprising to me that we did not find anything that was incriminating. We found things that were embarrassing to the university, but we didn't find anything that was actually incriminating. And so, yeah, that was surprising. Obviously, we've had calls by countless people, hundreds of people, I would say thousands of people, just to release these documents. And again, let's make it very clear, at the inception of this investigation, MSU pledged to be completely transparent and to provide all the materials that they had. They're the ones who asked for this investigation, right? So, of course, for them to have fought us in court, to have fought us continuously, again, over the course of 2 consecutive administrations and many, many years, to do anything and everything they could to not provide these documents. Yes, of course, we thought there would be something incriminating, and it is a surprise that there is not.
Well, if I can follow up, we had the gymnastics coach who was prosecuted for not following up I think back in the 90s. Dr. Strample was accused of not being very aggressive in following up or enforcing agreements. The FBI dropped the ball. I mean, it seems like we do have evidence of people failing in this multi-year saga. Is that enough? I mean, or do you still feel that there is some institutional responsibility that you just can't seem to put your finger on?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a prosecutor, right? So What we do is when there is evidence of a crime and we think that we can prove a case beyond a reasonable doubt, and there is the evidence and the facts and the law to sustain that, then we charge. If there's not, then we don't, right? There are other questions, of course, that people would like answered that maybe there is no criminal genesis behind, but maybe there were failures or lapses in the system. And we had hoped, of course, to be able, at least from a reporting mechanism, to lay out what those failures were. And I think that we've done that to some degree. And certainly, as you've indicated, there have been a number of people that were charged other than Larry Nassar. But it would be nice to know more. This is an incredibly lengthy period of time that Nassar, and of course, as you know, later we charged John Geddard, and others were able to perpetrate acts of abuse, or specifically who allowed that to happen. And it would have been nice to really be able to delineate very clearly who all those actors were that were involved in the event that there were others other than the ones we've mentioned. It seems sort of improbable to us, right? This is a major university, obviously extensive number of employees that work there. And yeah, I guess the expectation is that we would find a little bit more than we did. But all I can tell you is this. We assigned our best and brightest to this. They've worked tirelessly in reviewing, again, hundreds of thousands of documents, electronic documents and paper documents, and conducting countless interviews. And I feel like we gave this investigation everything that we could. So we've answered as many questions as we possibly could. Is it enough? Probably not. It's never going to be enough. And we can't, make whole the lives of people who were torn apart as a result of not just Larry Nassar, but the failures of Michigan State University. But I can tell you that we tried our hardest to do as much as we can with the information we had.
Thank you. And just a reminder, we do have 50 people on the call today, and we have 9 additional hands up. So if you have follow-up, which I understand happens, please just raise your hand again and we'll call on you in order.
Michigan Attorney General Dana Nessel just announced she is closing the investigation into Larry Nassar's sexual assaults tied to Michigan State University and documents that originally weren't released. Despite closing the case, Nessel says MSU wrongly applied attorney-client privilege to some documents and that many weren't preserved altogether. Nessel made a big point to address survivors, applauding them for their bravery coming forward, saying this isn't the end of honoring them and their accomplishments, forming a sisterhood. We'll have more on this coming up for you on CBS News Detroit. I'll be right back for CBS News Detroit at noon.